به أجمعين أما بعد. Respected brothers and sisters, all praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for providing us the opportunity to come to His house. We ask Allah to accept our ibadah. We ask the Almighty Allah to protect us from all types of evil. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. We ask Allah to help those who are going through difficult times, especially the brothers and sisters in Gaza. May Allah Azza wa Jal be with them and help them and assist them. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. As we started the discussion about major sins, it is essential and important that alongside we talk about actions that are bringing reward and the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because our iman and belief commands us to stay away from certain things and do certain things in our life. And staying away is a separate amal, and doing good action is a separate amal. When a person combines both of them together, when he combines the act of staying away from disobedience and at the same time doing good actions and beloved action in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this individual's progress he starts to develop spiritually, and he gets closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a person is not doing good actions, or if a person is doing good action and not staying away from sins, both of these situations can be disturbing for him in this life and in the life of hereafter. This is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he gave advice to the Sahaba to stay away from certain actions, as we were discussing those in the past couple of weeks regarding major sins, staying away from those actions which are considered to be the destroyer of a person's faith. Similarly, in contrary to that are the actions which are the most beloved in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we find them in the ahadith as ahabbul a'mali ilallah, actions that are most beloved in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when a person stays away from kaba'ir, major sins, and then he goes into major good actions, major deeds, which are ahabbul a'mali ilallah, then the progress of this human being continues. And if anything from the two falls off, if he's not doing good actions or is involved in sins, then the progress just goes down. Now, if a person is not able to do one, does it mean that he shouldn't be doing anything at all? No. If a person says, well, I cannot stay away from, I'm finding difficulties to stay away from sins, so I won't do any good deeds until I stay away from sins. Or if a person says, I'm not able to do any good deeds at all, and at the same time, I'm not able to do good deeds, so I will continue to do sins until I'm able to do good deeds. So this approach is not accepted, and it's an approach of shaitan that deceives human being from the right path. The approach of a believer is, which is recommended to us by Nabi alayhi salatu wassalam, as well as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to continue to do our action within our capacity. Why? Because continuous amal is going to eventually become the means of those that you're not able to do, so that you can do them. So when we talk about, because this is something that Nabi alayhi salam always asked Allah Azza wa Jal. From the du'as of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we find, Allahumma inni as'aluka hubbak wa hubba man yuhibbuk wa hubba amalin yuqarribuni ila hubbik. O Allah, I ask for your love and the love of those whom you love, and the actions that are beloved in the sight of you, O Allah. So this is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to make dua to Allah that Allah, show me those actions, give me the ability to do those actions which are beloved to you, which are mahbub to you. Why? Because if I do them, then I will become your beloved. And that is the greatest achievement that a person can have, is to get the rida of Allah, get the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we talk about these ahabbul a'mal, and at the same time we'll talk about the major sins, we'll alternate them by days inshallah, so that we can stay away from the disobedience as well as progress in good actions. The first action from all the actions that is known to be the most beloved in the sight of Allah is al-imanu billah. Sahabi came and he said, Ya Rasulullah, ayyul a'mali ahabbu ilallah. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, al-imanu billah. Is to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, al-iman billah, iman is something that goes through a lot of challenges throughout the entire day. Person goes through difficult times, he goes through happy moments, he goes through sad moments. All of these situations that go through the life of this human being, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, in all of your conditions, al-imanu billah is the most beloved act of yours in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That at the time of your adversity, you say, I believe in Allah and I depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the time of your happiness, al-imanu billah. At the time of your at the time of your pain, al-imanu billah. So this amal, no matter what time of the day or what condition of a believer this amal takes place, it becomes the most beloved in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah azza wa jal sees in this human being that no matter what condition the world is, this person is going through, he is not leaving my faith. And in fact, the more belief you have upon Allah azza wa jal at the time of your adversities and difficulties, the greater you become in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the ulama mentions, the status of a believer's belief increases and decreases. Al-imanu yazidu wa yanqus. Sahaba, they used to say, Ya Rasulullah, we don't feel the same way when we sit at home as we feel when we are next to you. Because when we sit next to you, our iman level is somewhere else. And when we go back into our own worldly affairs, our iman decreases. That's why the fara'id of the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal has been kept to keep a person closer to his faith and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as a believer, what do we need to do to increase that? So we found the benefit. We know what type of action this is in the sight of Allah. Now, of course, a person needs an exercise to practice this. So for a person to recite the kalima, Surah Al-Ikhlas, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said in the hadith, which Imam al-Tirmidhi rahimahullah has mentioned in his Sunan, that man qara'a Surah Al-Ikhlas mi'ata marra fi yawmin. The person who recites Surah Al-Ikhlas 100 times in the day, kafallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala min kulli shay'in, Allah will suffice for him for all of his affairs. All of his affairs will be sufficed. And Surah Al-Ikhlas is what? It's talking about the tawheed of Allah, the greatness of Allah and the powers of Allah. Through this, the iman becomes strong. A person is able to believe and practice accordingly. We ask the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us this strength and the ability to practice. And we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us amongst those fortunate ones whose imans are making them stay away from sins and strong. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha